Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Today we're going to take a closer look at 10 things you need to know after Nvidia's earnings. We can see after hours the stock is up over 6%. So let's get started with today's episode.
I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
All right, so I have this PowerPoint slide for you guys. And like I mentioned, today I want to take a closer look at 10 things that investors should know after Nvidia's earnings. I did an episode or a video prior to this where I took a closer look more kind of the numbers. Here, I want to take a closer look at more information, more in depth, something that other YouTubers don't give you. So I hope you guys do enjoy the episode. So the first thing I want to take a closer look at are key events that Nvidia is going to have. The first one is going to be here on June 2nd, where Jensen will deliver a keynote for Computex technology. So pretty excited there. We might hear some new updates on maybe some partnerships, maybe sneak peeks on what to expect in future presentations from Nvidia. The second one is on June 5th. They will present at a Bank of America Technology Conference in San Francisco. So that one's going to be pretty interesting. I tend to listen to a lot of these conferences because we do have a lot of great Q&A sessions here. So if you want to learn more about these two, I will most likely be doing a recap on them. So make sure to stay tuned to the channel. Now, the second thing is we did hear a lot of talks of big users using Nvidia's AI chips, and I just want to give a shout out to some of those names. So first, they mentioned that Tesla's expansion of their training AI cluster of 35,000 H100 GPUs, and that they're using Nvidia's AI infrastructure to pave the way for breakthrough performance of FSD version 12, their latest autonomous driving software based on vision. So if you are a big bull of Tesla like I am, and you are a big bull of FSD version 12 in general, where we're really seeing this pickup of machine learning, of artificial intelligence, then it should be pretty exciting that they're using a huge supercluster of Nvidia GPUs. And I think that's insane. A supercluster of 35,000 is one of the largest that I've heard about in a while. Another one that they talked about was from Meta. Meta used a 24,000 GPU cluster of H100 GPUs to train a Llama 3. And the overall management believes that as generative AI makes its way more into consumer internet applications, they expect to see continued growth opportunities as inference scales both with model complexity as well as with the number of users and the number of queries per users, driving much more demand for AI compute. And when they talk about model complexity here, if you have been following some of these AI markets, you're seeing that they're going into like multimodality, where they're not just reading text, where they're just not reading one thing. They can be reading audio, text, images, videos, and the list goes on and on. So that's where they're talking about that model complexity and how that can increase the need for AI compute, especially for both inferencing and training. Before we go any further, we are now on the road to 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Thank you all for the crazy support. So if you haven't and are enjoying the content, make sure to hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button. Finally, if you want to support the channel a little bit more, make sure to check out my special offer at fool.com/Jose. Now back to today's episode. Now, the next topic that they talked about that I think is very important is sovereign AI and AI factories. For those that are not familiar, sovereign AIs refers to nations kind of building up this AI infrastructure to create and improve their overall countries one way or another. And there are a lot of companies, countries that are already focusing on sovereign AI. We can see Japan plans to invest more than $740 million. We see France is also becoming a big hub for the AI market. Italy will build the nation's first and most powerful NVIDIA DGX super-powered supercomputer, and we're also seeing very similar in Singapore. So these are just a few countries, and there's many of countries in the world, and all of these governments are going to need some form of AI solutions one way or another. The other thing is AI factories, and AI factories are going to be these huge superclusters of GPUs. And the CFO mentions that in quarter one, they worked with over 100 customers customers building AI factories ranging in from a few hundred to tens of thousands of GPUs, with some reaching 100,000 GPUs. I am super excited to hear what monster out there is creating this 100,000 GPU supercluster. Many are expecting this to be OpenAI, but that is super insane. That's a whole lot of money for Nvidia. And if we continue to see some, they didn't mention one, they mentioned some 100,000 GPUs. Again, this bodes well for Nvidia in the future as well. Now, they did mention that in China, they did ramp new product designs specifically for the Chinese market that don't require export control license, but their data center revenue in China is down significantly from prior levels, and they expect the market in China to remain very competitive going forward. So obviously, due to a lot of these export control licenses, Nvidia has some kind of restrictions that they can't send the most powerful chip. So this is allowing competition in China to maybe pick up a little bit. The other thing in China is we are seeing kind of the Chinese government subsidizing companies there to go with in-house made chips instead, or in domestically made chips in China, which is also creating a lot of kind of negative pressure for Nvidia in China. But right now we can see that the Chinese market is still not needed, at least for the next few quarters, due to the overall kind of huge demand opposed to the amount of supply that they have right now. Now, when we also kind of heard a little bit about the Hopper and the Blackwell. During the quarter, they still see huge demand for their Hopper architecture. And this is something that a lot of people were kind of worried that there was going to be a pocket of weakness of Hopper because many companies were going to wait for the Blackwell product. But they did mention that no, hey, look, demand is still strong, and they started sampling H200 in quarter 1 and are currently in production with shipments on track for quarter 2. We did see that the first H200 was already shipped to OpenAI. They also mentioned that while supply for the H100 grew, they are still constrained on H200, and at the same time, the Blackwell is in full production already, and they are working to bring up their system and cloud partners for global availability later this year. Demand for the H200 and Blackwell is well ahead of supply, and they expect demand may exceed supply well into next year. Grace Hopper Superchip is also chipping in volume. Next, we're going to talk about networking, and they did mention that they did see a strong networking revenue growth year over year, and it was driven by their infinite band experience. Unfortunately, this quarter, they did see a modest sequential decline, which was due to more of a timing of supply. But in the upcoming quarters, they do expect this to go back to a sequential growth. In the first quarter, they started shipping their new Spectrum X Ethernet networking solution that is optimized for AI from the ground up, and it includes their Spectrum 4 switch and their Bluefield 3 DPU. Spectrum X is ramping up in volume right now with multiple customers, including a massive 100,000 GPU cluster. So Spectrum X is kind of enabling Nvidia's networking and Ethernet-only data centers to accommodate large-scale AI, and they expect Spectrum X to jump to a multi-billion-dollar product within a year. I mean, here we can see how fast the networking side has made. In quarter 1 of fiscal year of 2025, networking made roughly $3.2 billion in revenue. I actually saw this pretty funny post on X where they mentioned that Nvidia's networking solution is actually going to make more money than AMD's AI accelerator for the year, which I think is pretty crazy and kind of continues to showcase the strength of Nvidia, that they're not just a GPU company, they're a full-out platform. Next, we did get some updates on Blackwell. Blackwell is already in productions, and shipments will start in quarter 2 and ramp in quarter 3, and customers should have data centers stood up in quarter 4. So an analyst was wondering, hey, so we will see Blackwell revenue this year, and Jensen mentioned, yes, we will see a lot of Blackwell revenue this year. So obviously very bullish. As you guys know me, Blackwell is probably the most bullish I've ever been for architecture shift so far, especially the Grace Blackwell 200, but I think that one's expected more later this year and early next year instead. Now, Jensen also did talk about the overall demand and why the overall demand is so high. So first, they mentioned that GPUs in all data centers, the demand for GPUs in all data centers is insane. and they are raising every single day. The main reason is because applications like ChatGPT, GPT-4o are now going multimodality. You have Gemini, you have all these other large language models going multimodality, and you need a lot more computer. The other thing is there's a long line of generative AI startups, around 15 to 20,000 startups that are in different fields and all need AI compute. And customers right now are putting a lot of pressure on them to deliver the systems and stand them up as quickly as possible. And of course, he still has even mentioned sovereign AI, which I talked about earlier, where regions or countries are trying to build their own AI infrastructure. So we can see right now that demand continues to be very, very strong for Nvidia, and that's why they really they have this really high confidence that demand is going to outstrip supply for various quarters, maybe even onto next year, like CEO mentioned. Now we do hear about dividend and stock split. They did mention a stock split 10-by-1. That's going to happen on June 6th after the market closes. When the market opens on June 7th, you should awaken with 9 more shares. So congratulations. Stock split isn't really something that I tend to care about too much, but it definitely kind of adds a little bit more volatility to the market, and we definitely see excitement from it from retail investors. The second thing is we did see a 150% increase in quarterly cash dividend. They increased it to about 10 cents per share, but after the stock split is going to be 1 cent per share, and we're going to get that money on June 28th, 2024. Now, the final thing that I want to take a closer look at is this company's cash and balance sheet. Cash and cash equivalents right now is roughly $31.4 billion, up nearly 100% versus a year ago. So I'm really curious what this company is going to do with this huge amount of cash that they are building up. I mean, cash flow from operations is $15.3 billion, up from $2.9 billion a year ago. So overall, this company's cash and balance sheet and cash flow statement have increased dramatically, and I am very, very curious to see what kind of management is going to do with this huge influx of money. Are they going to pay down their overall debt? Are they going to make acquisitions? Unfortunately, though, for Nvidia, because it's such a big company, they do have the eyes of a lot of regulators, so I don't think they can make any crazy acquisitions. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see what they do with the money right now. So those are the 10 points I wanted to take a closer look at. I hope you all enjoyed today's episode. Take care, have a good day, and see you all next time.